Howdy friends, welcome to my channel Cine Review. Today we explain King Arthur, the Legendary Sword. King Arthur, the Legendary Sword is a 2017 fantasy action film directed by Guy Ritchie. The film reimagines the classic Arthurian legend in a new and modern way. Here is the plot summary. The story follows a young Arthur, played by Charlie Hunnam, who is unaware of his royal lineage. He grew up in the back streets of Londinium, a fictional version of London, after his parents were murdered. Arthur lives a difficult life, but he is unaware of his true destiny. The power-hungry Vortigern, played by Jude Law, usurped the throne after staging the death of King Uther Pendragon, Arthur's father. Vortigern maintains his rule thanks to dark magic and a stone-inlaid sword, which only Uther's true heir can remove. As fate would have it, Arthur finally discovered his lineage and the ability to wield the magical sword Excalibur he drew from the stone. With Excalibur in hand, he became the reluctant leader of an uprising against Vortigern's oppressive regime. Along with a group of loyal friends, including Bedivere, Jemon Hunsu, and mage Astrid Burgess Frisbee, Arthur embarks on a journey to reclaim his rightful place as king. The film is filled with action sequences, magic elements, and modern visual effects. Arthur faces many different challenges and enemies, but his journey is much more than physical battles. It's also about discovering yourself, embracing your destiny, and becoming the true leader you were born to be. King Arthur, Legend of the Sword blends traditional Arthurian legend with Guy Ritchie's signature style, combining fast-paced storytelling, witty dialogue, and dynamic cinematography. Themes the hero's strength, fate, and journey while giving a fresh and contemporary twist to the well-known legend. Centuries prior to the Dull Ages, the fiendish mage Mordred, victimized Knighton, looked for incredible control through the utilization of dull enchantment. Mordred and his armed force make their way to Camelot and start laying squander to the kingdom of Britain as they ride on the backs of gigantic war elephants. Lord Uther Pendragon, Eric Bana, leads his claim to armed force against Mordred's powers. Uther rides his horse to reach Mordred's fortification while using his powerful sword Excalibur. With one swing, Uther kills Mordred and puts a conclusion to his rule of dread. Before long after, Uther's brother Vortigern, Jude Law, leads an upset against Uther and the kingdom. Vortigern takes his spouse Elsa, Katie McGrath, underground to a pit where he slaughters Elsa and spills her blood to realize a more grounded shape. Uther gets his spouse Igraine, Poppy Delevingne, and youthful child Arthur out of the castle as Vortigern's flunkies, the Blacklegs, are closing in on them. As the lowlifes start causing chaos all through the kingdom, Uther brings Igraine and Arthur by the docks. A figure approaches the family and heaves a skewer at Igraine, slaughtering her. Youthful Arthur is sent to the capital city of Londinium and is taken in to be raised in a brothel. As he develops more seasoned, Arthur spends his time on the boulevards, getting into inconvenience with other children and picking battles with those that annoy him. As a grown-up, presently played by Charlie Hunnam, Arthur develops more grounded and cockier and has made companions with Rubio, Freddie Fox, and Percival, Craig McGinley. Arthur tends to his companion Lucy, Nicola Wren, a prostitute, who was already attacked by a gathering of Vikings. Arthur is afterward called to talk to a commander after Blacklegs strike the brothel. Arthur outed a man covering up named Goosefat Charge Turner, Aidan Gillen, and he got into a quarrel with the Vikings for harming Lucy and driving them to deliver up their wages. The commander tells Arthur that those Vikings were insured by the Lord, and thus Arthur must pay for his wrongdoing. Arthur is taken and put onto a transport with other men headed for the kingdom. The Blacklegs also kill Lucy before Arthur and the other whores fare to show disdain toward him. Vortigern talks to the sirens that allowed him his control after he murdered Elsa. He does not, however, have the full control he looks for, and the sirens tell him that once he murders Arthur and takes control of the sword, he will succeed. Vortigern at that point learns that the sword has been found in a stone pulled out of the sea. Arthur is brought forward to the stone with hundreds of other men as they are constrained to endeavor to drag the sword out. When Arthur steps out, he gradually feels the sword coming out of the stone. He sees flashes of pictures and faculties, an effective and overpowering vitality that causes him to pass out. Arthur wakes up in Vortigern's prison. The ruler enters and clarifies to Arthur fair what he had felt. He tells Arthur who his father was and how he is able to use the sword. Be that as it may, Vortigern intends to hold control of himself, so Arthur must be managed. Uther's previous common, Sir Bedivere Gemanhun Su, is met by a lady known as the mage, Astrid Burgess Frisby. She was sent by Merlin to assist Arthur. Vortigern sentences Arthur to execution. The mage covers up and employments her powers to summon falcons to attack Vortigern's men, whereas Bedivere and his men offer assistance to Arthur get absent. They bring him to their safe house, where Arthur clumsily faces charge after their past experience. Bedivere tells Arthur they require his offer of assistance in vanquishing Vortigern, but Arthur denies to assist them. The others at that point question whether he truly can wield the sword because it was accepted. Arthur knows they need him to battle them, and he at first chooses not to, until he sucker punches charge and tries to use Excalibur by himself. This as it were causes him to swoon once more. Bedivere afterward clarifies to Arthur how Vortigern had worked with Mordred the total time to ensure that Vortigern would eventually develop triumphantly. His extreme objective is to develop the Mage Tower, which had once been the source of Mordred's control, but in the event that Vortigern completes it, he would be relentless. After Mordred rose to control, Uther came into ownership of Excalibur from the Woman of the Lake, Jackie Ainsley, leading him to murder Mordred. The mage recommends to Bedivere to require Arthur to the Blacklands, where Merlin had annihilated Mordred's tower, so that he may prepare to memorize how to control the sword. Arthur faces a number of animals as he endeavors to utilize the sword to his full potential. He gets offered assistance from a revolt named George, Tom Wu. As Arthur tries to get a handle on the control of the sword, truly, he sees a vision of the night his guardians were killed. He sees Vortigern's evil knight shape as he tossed the stick at Igraine, sometime recently dueling with Uther as he sent his child absent. Vortigern overwhelmed him and about struck a lethal blow until Uther tossed his sword into the discus and let it spear him, in this way turning him into the stone that held Excalibur and making him sink to the profundities of the sea underneath. Once Arthur gets it, his father gives up. He chooses to go kill Vortigern. Arthur and the rebels arrange to meet with aristocrats from other kingdoms to have them on their side to go up against Vortigern. Arthur makes a difference, organize gatherings with the nobles within the woods, which includes expounding showdowns among his own men to appear the barons that Arthur is somebody they can take after. Vortigern's servant Maggie, Annabel Wallace, is subtly a spy for Bedivere. She illuminates the rebels that Vortigern has also met with a Viking noble to make a union. The rebels arrange to assault Vortigern when he arrives in Londinium. Once Vortigern and his men arrive, the rebels cover up in a tower as Charge keeps an eye out. He prepares his bow and bolt, as it were for Arthur to tell him that Vortigern has sent a bait in his put. Charge still fires his bolt, driving to an assault. The rebels make a run for it, but Backneed and Rubio get harmed amid them elude. Backneed remains behind, saying he will meet them at the secure house. Rubio sacrifices himself to permit Arthur and the others to scale a wall to require asylum within the school run by George. The Blacklegs assault the school, forcing the rebels to battle back. Arthur sees the mage being held at knife point by a Blackleg. With a mighty swing of the sword, Arthur is filled with the magic of Excalibur and battles the Blacklegs single-handedly, killing them all. Chaos breaks out over Londinium that night as the rebels remain in a secure house. Rubio and his child Blue Landau, arrive and connect with their companions. Vortigern's common greybeard, Michael Persbrand, has followed back Need, driving the two villains to discover and examine him. Blue runs back for his father but must imagine not knowing him to secure both of them. Vortigern at that point goes to cut off one of Backlac's ears to see on the off chance that Blue is telling the truth. Fair sometime recently Vortigern cuts it off. Blue shouts to form him to halt. In spite of his affirmation that he is the child, Vortigern cuts off Backlac's ear besides. After inquiring where Arthur and the sword are at, Arthur runs in to urge Blue out of there. As Arthur picks up Blue, Blue watches Vortigern slaughter his father and Arthur takes him absent. Feeling like a disappointment to his men, Arthur tosses Excalibur into the ocean. He strolls through the woods and is pulled into a little pool by the woman of the lake. She appears to Arthur a vision of what will happen in the event that he does not stop Vortigern. Individuals will kick the bucket and the kingdom will perish ought to accomplish his extreme control. Arthur returns to meet with Bedivere, George, and Percival. When they get back to their safe house, they discover all of their companions and allies dead. Greybeard is there to deliver a caution to Arthur in case he doesn't yield by the conclusion of the day. Vortigern will murder both Blue and the mage. Through a transaction, the mage is discharged when Arthur goes to turn himself and the sword into Vortigern. Sometime recently anybody can harm Arthur. The mage summons a mammoth wind to come in and eat Greybeard and the other Blacklegs. The rebels at that point go to free the rest of Vortigern's detainees and start to fight the Blacklegs. Knowing what's almost to happen, Vortigern goes to his daughter's room. Katia, Millie Brady, tells her ladies to take off, hugs her, tells her he cherishes her so much, and after that murders her as he did her mother. He takes her body down to the pit to give up her and recapture his devil warrior frame. He brings Arthur to a completely distinctive domain and battles him. Arthur puts up a good fight but is eventually overwhelmed by Vortigern. Arthur then sees the vision of Uther sometime recently his passing, with Arthur standing sometime recently his father. Before the sword hits Uther, Arthur gets it, and Uther tells him it is time for him to use Excalibur. Arthur proceeds the battle and tells Vortigern that everything that has brought Arthur to this minute is all much obliged to Vortigern himself, due to his activities affectation Arthur to come battle. Arthur annihilates Vortigern's blades and spears his misleading uncle. Arthur clears out Vortigern with his passing on breaths as the mage tower collapses. Whereas afterward, Arthur is seen building the circular table. He knights George and Percival while keeping Bedivere and Charge in his circle. Arthur too cuts ties with the Viking aristocrat and is meant to dodge assist clashes. The Vikings calmly stoop some time recently the new king. Arthur is at that point displayed with his crown as he goes to confront his kingdom. The people cheer as Arthur raises Excalibur within the discussion. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon to get new video updates. Stay safe.